All right, and now once again, I'd like to get into my Ben Buzz top 25. Now, there's been a lot of shakeups from the previous week, and first off, I kind of want to address five or so teams that were right there, and I really wanted to put in, but I didn't. Where I felt like we really do need a top 30. Where teams like Washington. I really wanted to put Washington. They're like my number 26 right now. Maryland's really great. TCU looks odd. Arizona State should probably be ranked, where it's like, those types of things where it's like there's so many teams that are just outside looking in where I honestly could have put them here, especially the bottom five where I'm like, a lot of this is kind of interchangeable, but this is kind of what I went with. I went with number 25. I went with Memphis, and that win against Arkansas, they really shouldn't have won that game. And the way they were able to rally in the fourth quarter and the way they were able to come back, it was impressive. And while I would like to put Washington here, even though they look dominant, even like those types of things, they haven't played anyone like super like impressive. Not to take anything away from Washington, I think that's a spectacular team, and if they play fairly decent against Ohio State, they will definitely be in my top 25. But it's like Memphis played a team very well and ended up winning against a team that barely lost to the number 13 team the previous week, where I'm like, I think Memphis is pretty solid. I know it's not like a great win, but it's like, that's not bad. And we had number 24. I moved USF up one spot where it's like the Bulls look really good, and they just dominated South Carolina State. And, I know they still have that Miami loss, and that's going to sting. But you'll see where I have Miami up on the list where it's like, that's not a bad loss. And you can't strip away their reputation and everything that they've done all year. And, last week was very impressive. And I think it was a really great get-back win that they needed to do. And as we've said on this program a lot, a great team responds greatly after they lose. And that's what South Florida did, dominating against South Carolina State. And I moved Alabama up a little bit as well. They're at 23. I could put them higher. I could put them lower. Whatever you think, where like the Ultra Bama supporters are going to say they're top 15. The Ultra Bama haters are going to say, why are they even on this list? Where I'm like, once again, I kind of fall in between where it's like that Florida State game was rough. I still think they're a pretty decent team, but I can't put them that high until they kind of prove themselves like other teams on this list. Then Auburn, I ended up moving just down a spot. I think it's pretty ridiculous to move them completely out because, that game against Oklahoma was incredible. They drove down and took the lead at the end of the game. They were up 17-16 in the fourth. I'm like, you'll see where I have Oklahoma, and now the AP poll, they have them at 7, where it's like, that's a great game. Like, they barely lost, and we'll see how they do this weekend. But, Auburn's kind of scary where it's like, to unrank them after they played that great, you slid them up there before they had done something. Then they did something. I know they lost, but they played really great, where you'll see in the AP poll, they had Tennessee at 15. This is a great example. Had Tennessee at 15 before that Georgia game. After Tennessee loses, they're just like, okay, you know what? You're pretty solid. We'll keep you at 15. Now Auburn barely loses, and they're completely out. Disgusting. It's honestly appalling. So I still have Auburn ranked. I did move them down a spot from the loss, but, it's whatever. I have them at 22. Then that's where USC kind of landed for me. I didn't have them in last week. They was just so congested towards the bottom half where they were kind of like Washington last week where I'm like, I want to put them in, but I'm running out of spots where I'm like, that's where I kind of ran into a wall last week. But USC, that game against Michigan State, very impressive against the team. That's not bad. That's a very solid coach. Childs, that Michigan State team's solid. And what they're doing with Maiyava and Lincoln Riley, they're starting to run the ball better. Where if you look at those Oklahoma teams, where I know the big story was Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, those big stars, Jalen Hurts, but they were consistently able to rush the ball well. Couldn't really do that in those years with Caleb Williams, where they're really starting to figure that out. And Lincoln Riley, it's really looking more and more like a Lincoln Riley offense. He's starting to really figure it out and going back to what he did before. So USC, that's where they slide at 21 for me, and I feel like they could go higher. What was that? They could go higher, but for now, they land at 21 for me. Then at number 20, I had Missouri. Now, Missouri's a really interesting team. I think they're pretty solid, but it's like, I don't know. But they've done pretty solid. They beat Kansas. That was pretty impressive. And then they beat a South Carolina team that was pretty hungry after getting absolutely embarrassed. So that win doesn't look as good now as we thought it would coming into the season, where it's like Vanderbilt just decimated South Carolina, where it's like, oh, you barely beat South Carolina. How impressive is that really? I still think it is because South Carolina just really got mollywopped, and they came into this game with a lot of heart and a lot of pride, and they really needed to respond well, and Missouri shut that down. Once again, I kind of raised them up. I don't know. I still think they're pretty solid, but it's like, ooh, I don't know. We'll wait until they really play somebody, but South Carolina and Kansas, I know they're unranked, but those are two pretty solid wins. And it's kind of unfortunate for them that South Carolina win won't look as great now, but you know what? It was pretty solid. So I moved them up a couple spots. Then I had Michigan at number 19th, and the biggest reason is that we saw a lot of growth from Bryce Underwood, the QB, and just the whole team as a whole. But you go back to that game against Oklahoma a few weeks ago where it's like they went on the road in a tough environment. Oklahoma, like, that's a tough place to play. And they went in there, and it didn't go that great. They ended up losing. I believe it was like 13-24. Wasn't great. They didn't handle it very well, and he's a freshman. It was his first road start, and that's a tough place to play at Oklahoma. But you know what? He came back, and then he blew out a Central Michigan team, and then now he goes on the road against Nebraska, and this whole team did very well. And I know the score, it'll tell you that it was Michigan 30-27, but I mean, it wasn't that close, honestly. Nebraska ended up scoring late, and then they had a Hail Mary at the end of the first where it's like, Michigan really played well. And on the road against a Nebraska team, like, they were hungry too. Nebraska's pretty solid. That's what people don't give credit. We're like, yeah, you barely beat Nebraska. It's like, it's tough to win on the road in the Big Ten. That's very evident. We saw what happened to Illinois. We saw how Rutgers was a really tough place to play for Iowa. Like, I know SEC is the one that mainly gets talked about where it's really tough to play on the road, but it's like, it's really tough to play on the road in the Big Ten too. And we saw that when Michigan went on the road against Nebraska. But you know what? Bryce Underwood showed a lot of growth, a lot of development, and played much better on the road and was able to do more than enough to get his team this win. So I moved my Michigan up. I had them down, I think it was like 22 or something. I had to move them up because it was pretty impressive for me. So Michigan lands at 19. Then I moved Mississippi State up to 18th, and they had a solid, dominant win over Northern Illinois. But it's like Mississippi State, it's like it wasn't like their win was super impressive, but it's like teams like Illinois ended up falling out, where I'm like, I really like this Mississippi State team. So they moved up to 18 for me, and I think it's really strange that they're not even ranked in the AP poll. That's what's really strange, because we see them sometimes they give a lot of credit to Big Ten or like SEC teams, where you see like Illinois is still ranked. Alabama was still ranked when they lost, where it's like, where's that sort of respect for teams like Mississippi State? So they fall at 18 for me. They're still really solid, and we'll see what happens against Tennessee this weekend. Huge game, but they are at home, and are they the better team? I don't know. Tennessee's been pretty good, so we'll really have to see, but I think they deserve the 18th spot. Then this one might get controversial. I had Texas at 17. They've been really under-impressive. Because you look at that game against Ohio State. Ohio State was very reserved with their freshman quarterback. It was his first start. They didn't want him to throw away the game. And we had thought that kind of same thing against Arch for him because he was on the road as his first big test where it's like, haven't seen that sort of improvement we were expecting where it's like San Jose State was fine, but he had a pick, and then UTEP, it was ugly where it's like he shouldn't really be struggling, and then they just blew out Sam Houston, which honestly it's really, really strange. Like all these teams that they're scheduling where it's like, yeah, you beat Sam Houston. It's like not only are they group of five, but also they're not even like a good group of five team. Like it's not you were playing Memphis or South Florida or Tulane for that matter, like Ole Miss did, where it's like not really that impressive, where it's like I don't feel great against Texas. Something's got to change. Something got to change fast. So they're sliding at 17 for me. I really could have put them lower. I don't understand why the AP poll still thinks they're top 10. What on-field success tells you that? You're telling me that of Ohio State and Texas rematch, you're telling me it's close. I don't buy it. I got Texas at 17. We'll see. Maybe the stage is bad. Maybe Texas is actually great, but I'm saying at the moment, they're not top 10. They're not top 15. Where it's like, maybe they'll improve. I hope they do. Steve Sarkisian's a great coach. Arch Manning's got a lot of potential, but they're not there right now. And it shouldn't be weird to say that, because they're not. Then I had Iowa State at 16. Moved them up a little bit. Iowa State's a tricky team to rank, because they just had a bye week, and their last game was ugly against Arkansas State. If they play solid against Arizona this weekend, I'll move them up a little bit, but it's like, Iowa State, I don't know really what to do with them because they didn't play that great last week, but they're at 16 for me. Then I had Ole Miss at number 15. I know they had them at 13, but They looked a little sloppy against Kentucky and Arkansas, so I had knocked them down to about 18 or something like that. Then they started playing better, and they had a really dominant win against Tulane. So I bumped them up some spots and bumped them up to 15. You'll see with the teams ahead of them. That's as far as I could really do without them proving themselves. But I'll say it right now. If they beat LSU, they will be in my top 10. That's for sure. If they beat LSU, I will move them up. But there's teams ahead of them that have either looked better or done more. And that's just kind of what it comes down to. Where you look at Tennessee. They really should have beat Georgia. I don't know how they gave that game away. And we'll see how that game goes with Mississippi State this weekend. But I like Tennessee going forward. We'll see how it works out for them. I think that's a good team, though. Then another SEC team in Vanderbilt. I think they deserve their respect. I think they're 13. They blew out South Carolina. That's what's not talked about. They blew them out. Blew the doors off of South Carolina. That was 11th at the time. And Missouri, I think they're a really solid team, but they only won by 9. And that's not shade at Missouri. Missouri controlled that game, and they deserved that win. But it's like the fact that Vanderbilt won the way they did speaks volumes. So I kind of slide them at 13. Is it too high? Is it too low? I don't know. That's kind of where I slide them, but we'll see how Vanderbilt does going forward. Then Georgia Tech at 12. Georgia Tech is another one that's difficult to rank because their best win is Clemson, who's off the face of the earth. Clemson's in the depths, so we'll really see how things go with Georgia Tech going forward. I have them at 12. I don't know. I'm not real sure about that anymore. I still feel like Georgia Tech's a great team, and I feel like they deserve number 12. But that's just one of the tricky ones to rank because it's like their best win, it is Clemson, where it's like Clemson's gone. We'll see if we hear from Clemson at some point, but they're bad. Then we had Texas Tech at number 11. This is one I really wanted to put them in the top 10, but you'll see with my top 10, it's really congested and really tough, where this is kind of like Washington, where it's like I really wanted to put them at the top 25, but I just couldn't fit them in there, where it's like there's so many great teams. Because I feel like in any other year, I have Texas Tech in the top 10. I do. Where it's like, man, I know their quarterback, Baron Morton, ended up kind of getting benched with the pick, but then their backup ended up coming in, doing really well. We'll see if he gets to start going forward, where it's like, man, Texas Tech looked good and probably the Big 12 favorite. Iowa State still seems solid, but it's like Iowa State kind of falling off the wagon. They haven't lost, though. That's the biggest thing, where it's like they haven't played themselves out of it too much because they haven't had that loss. We'll see if they beat Arizona. We'll see how Texas Tech does going forward, but I have Texas Tech at 11. Then this is how my top 10 really shakes out. So I got Penn State at 10, and this was tough. I had them a lot higher last week. Ended up just having to bump them all the way down to 10. Same thing with Oregon, where it's like whoever wins that game, I'm obviously going to bump up all the way. We'll see how far up they go, but it's like Penn State, once again, they haven't played anybody, but also they haven't looked great against their weaker schedule, where it's like, I don't know. When they play Oregon, it's going to be tricky. And Oregon has looked a lot better, and they blew out Oregon State. And then they had a very impressive win, starting Big Ten play against Northwestern. Not super impressive because it's Northwestern, and they couldn't stop the run too well, which Dan Lanning certainly wasn't happy about. Those are where those teams kind of lie for me because the teams ahead of them have done more. It's like next week, whoever wins that game, I will put up. Where it's like, you're telling me that they've done more, where it's like LSU, they kind of fall at 8. LSU's a tough one to rank for me because I really not sold on them. I mean, that Clemson win, once again, it gets worse and worse every week. Same thing for Georgia Tech, where I'm like, I don't know. And LSU, it's just really tricky. And I think that's why Ole Miss has a really great shot against them this weekend. Then I had Indiana at 7, and I almost wanted to put them higher. Indiana, they blew out a team so bad that it's no longer looked at as a quality win. The team they beat was ranked number 9th. As much as you want to demean that win, that is impressive. That is incredibly impressive. To beat a team in the top 10 so bad that now it's like, yeah, they haven't really played anybody. Yeah, they haven't really beat anybody. That's insane. They beat them that bad that it's not even looked at like that. I think that's the big thing where it's like 53 points, stunning. And I know they were at home, but it's like, that's kind of unheard of. Where I'm like, Indiana's just really good. And so the AP poll has them at 11, but I think they're better than that. I think they're number 7 for me. And if you watch that Indiana game, Mendoza, the new quarterback, he is really, really something. I mean, we'll see how he does going forward, but I mean, he throws the ball so beautifully, and they're so on point. There was a key one where he threw it to the left, like corner of the end zone, And you could see the spiral. It's like so perfect. Mendoza looked great. I think he only incompleted 2 passes. Unheard of. Then I had Texas A&M at 6. Texas A&M still pretty solid. Reed, really good quarterback. And, I mean, that Notre Dame win still pretty impressive. And I've kind of slowly bumped them up as well. Texas A&M, I mean, they're really good. And that's where they kind of lie for me. And I know we're still coming off of that Notre Dame win, but, like, the AP poll still has them ranked. Like, they still looked at that as a pretty good win, where I'm like, I really do like Texas A&M. And we'll see how things go going forward, especially now that they're getting into SEC play. So we'll see how it goes forward for them. I have them at 6. Now, this is how my top 5 shakes out. So I have Oklahoma at 5, and Oklahoma's a really tricky team to rank. I honestly wanted to put them at 3, kind of, just because I feel like it's so impressive beating Auburn and then Michigan, who are now, in my eyes, 2 currently ranked teams. But in the AP poll, those are still ranked wins, just not current. But OU, it's just tough because the quarterback, who was kind of the Heisman frontrunner, John Mateer, injured his hand against Auburn. That's the really tricky thing. He injured his hand. And it was his throwing hand, no less, and he had to get surgery on it. We did hear good news, though, that the surgery went great, and, he's only going to miss a month, so, thoughts and prayers to John Mateer. I really hope he gets back on the field because he's been playing so phenomenal, where it's so sad, where it's like, man, that guy was having such a great season for Oklahoma, but luckily, it's not as terrible as it looks because they have a bye week. That's huge. Then they play Kent State. Should be okay, but then here's the tricky thing. Then they play Red River. Very unlikely Mateer's ready for that. I would be surprised. He would be coming in a few weeks early. I would doubt it. But, I mean, I'm not putting it out of the question because he hurt his hand in the first quarter against Auburn, and he played the rest of the game. He led a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter that was incredibly key to winning. Where, like, I heard that, I was like, it was in the first quarter. I'm like, well, he still looked great. Where we'll see how he does post-surgery, but I'm worried he'd rush himself into that Red River rivalry against Texas, where I thought Oklahoma had that one kind of in the bag, where you see how far down I had Texas. But now if John Mateer, I mean, I don't know if they beat Michigan without John Mateer. I don't think they do. I don't think they definitely don't beat Auburn without John Mateer. That's for sure. That's the thing. John Mateer, I mean, it's understated how instrumental he was to Oklahoma's success. And their next 4 slate, where it's like they have a bye week, and they have Kent State. So it's like they have a little bit of time for him to get healthy, but just sucks that he'll likely miss Red River. Then I had Florida State at number 4. They still feel pretty impressive in that Alabama win. You see where I have Alabama. AP poll had them at 14 at one point, and then dropped them down to 17th post the loss, where it's like Florida State, I mean, that's still a really great win. And, I mean, no team has really done that against a team that's still getting that kind of respect, where it's like they housed them. And the score was definitely not evident how much of a blowout it was. And I've kind of just slowly moving them up as teams continue to lose, or I feel like they just kind of deserve to be ahead of. Then I had Georgia at 3. And I think it goes without saying that they're the SEC favorite. They're the reigning SEC champions, won 2 national championships a few years ago back-to-back, where it's like Georgia's really solid. And I think Gunnar Stockton, he's pretty good. I mean, he came in during that Texas-Georgia game in the SEC championship, and he won that game in overtime. Where it's like, Gunnar Stockton's pretty solid. We'll see how they do when they host Alabama. I like their chances. They win at home. Alabama doesn't really win on the road. So I like Bama on that one. I think they'll stay up high in the rankings. I had them at 3. And then, once again, I had Miami at 2. I really want to put Miami at 1. I just can't do it. Not yet. I mean, their win against Florida was incredible. It really was. And, I mean, they hosted them. It was a sloppy game in the rain. It was kind of wet. And eventually Miami pulled away, where it's like they were the better team, and they found a way to win. Then that South Florida win, where it's like not just how they won. Once again, it's about how dominant it was. Then that Notre Dame game, where Notre Dame ended up creeping back in the game, ended up tying it. Carson Beck is able to lead them on a field goal drive, and then they make it, and then they win. Where it's like Miami's resume is very impressive. And if we're talking purely resume, they probably should be ahead of Ohio State. I know this is probably a pretty boring take, but it's like Ohio State, they're the reigning national champions. They had that really dominant win against Texas, where it's like, if their quarterback, if that's not his first start ever, if he's not a freshman, I think they win that game by a lot more than they did. They were very reserved, you could tell, where it's like that defense was able to do plenty to win the game, where it's like Ohio State's pretty scary. And we'll see what happens once they get into that trickier schedule. And when they go on the road to face Washington, it's going to be very tricky. But that's how my top 25 shakes out. And there was a lot of teams I kind of wanted to put in there. It's going to be really tricky, but this is what's crazy is that there's so many ranked matchups, and not just ranked matchups, so many great matchups across the board. This top 25 is going to change dramatically. Like when we look at this one compared to next week, it's going to be flipped on its head probably in a lot of aspects. So we'll see, and I can't wait to make another one next week.